I've never been a big fan of using compressed air to clean machines. I always think you blow the chips in instead of blowing them out. But I admit that sometimes it comes in really handy. For example, for these small drill chucks or to clean out in here in the scroll system of the chuck. Really good, and that's why normally I use this one. But there are several problems with this. Problem one, I have this hose that's always lying on the floor, and I think that's a bit dangerous. This thing is hooked up to a small oilless compressor, which is very noisy, so every time I start blowing chips out, my little compressor starts, and every time it scares the crap out of me. So, game over, don't use it anymore. Now I have this little compressor, but every time I start it up, it starts to shake and to dance because it's a very wobbly thing. Now, to prevent this little thing from falling off the table, I install it here in this spot on the lathe. At least here it can't escape. But to use it I need my extension cord. So also the cord is on the floor. So one side is the hose, the other side is the cord, so that's not really a win. Plus over here the thing is always in the coolant, in the oil and chips. That's not really a good idea, I think. So let's find a better solution. I opened up the pumping station here, but that's not an option. Here's not enough room left to put this little compressor in. I also opened the power station. Now it's really greasy and dirty in here, but I'm sure you don't see that. Huh? In here it's full of things, really not enough room to install the little compressor. So the only option left is in the electrical station. I really don't know what they were thinking when they designed this little lathe. Maybe they were not thinking at all, because this is of course the front side and the access door to the electrical panel is on the back side, between the wall and the stand. That's smart. So I have to move my machine from the wall and see if there's enough room in here. Okay, I managed to open the door, and of course I don't have a key for this thing, but with a pair of pliers it opens, and in here, to me, this is a disaster area. But there's also good news. Here is a nice little spot to install my compressor. So this could work, that's good. Below here, these are the 6 wires that goes to the motor. So you have 3-phase turning left and 3-phase turning right, or reverse, I don't know. And here is the earth link, and this thing is linked to nothing. So this comes from the motor and goes nowhere. Now I'll move up here. Here we see that the earth link from the power cable that comes from the plug from outside is connected to, I'm gonna try to film it a little bit, to this one, and behind here there's some secret blue wire. I have to find out where it goes. This one goes to the 3 switches on the front of the machine. And so here they used the earth wire, always green and yellow. Normally it should be the earth link, but this brings the power to the switches, and this side comes back, and one of them is for the coolant pump and the other one is for the lamp. Here we are on the front of the machine, and I took the switchboard off. So here is 3 beautiful switches. First one for the pump, middle one for the light, and the right one is connected to nothing. I wanted to use that one for the compressor. And here also we see the earth link wire is the one that brings the power in, is connected to the 3 switches on the back side, connected here, and then the brown one and the blue one is for the light and the pump, and the third one there's no connection. When I bought this machine, all I had to do was change the links in the 3-phase motors, because they were in star or in Y configuration, and I needed them to be in triangle. So that's all I did on the electric system of this machine. And now that I'm working a bit around here, I see that in fact it was not linked to the earth. That can be dangerous. So now what I did, I linked the earth, this one, down here, and all electric motors and switch panels are now linked to the earth. I had to change some cables because there were wires linked together in very weird spaces, and it was a little bit of a rat nest in here. Well, it's still a bit of a rat nest, but now I know what is what. So I installed this cable, goes to the switches, all in one. I suppose you understand I didn't film all this. My idea was to make some kind of time lapse of it. But as you see, there's really not much room to work. I think now down here I created a nice little spot to install my compressor. This is a kind of temporary fixes that gonna last forever in one day probably. Let's give it a go! That works. Coolant pump. that handy or what? Several times people ask me questions about this machine, you know, where it is built and all this kind of stuff. Well, I don't know. On the back side here is a little tag and that says 1970 something. It's not filled in. I think this machine was built in what used to be East Germany. The electric motors in here, there's a 2-3 phase and there's one single phase, are built in the USSR. The electric systems, the relays and all this stuff were built in Germany. The gearboxes, the gear reductions in the bottom there, are built in France. So I don't know, I can only guess. I bought this machine from a person not far away from here, and he sold it because of one of his family members owned it and he passed away, and so to help the family he sold this machine. He knew nothing about it. I always wondered, how is it possible to collect so much junk when you're working around electric systems in machines and other things? Oh, envelope. Oh, it's from Nigel. Go create hobby machine shop. Go and have a look at Nigel's channel at Go Create Hobby Machine Shop. Of course, there's a link in the description here. And Nigel, as you can see, I already put one of your stickers on the cheap door. And lucky I am, I participated in the collaboration for the Baby Vice build. That was really fun thing to do. I really appreciated that. Last week I also received a handful of questions about this little model shaper. Now let's see what we can do. First of all, this thing, I powered it with a little motor. I think this one comes out of a car radio cassette. This is a 12-volt motor, and the wiring went through the hole here in my workbench and then hooked up on a little transformer. I used a 6-volt transformer because 12-volt it turned too quickly. Now the hardest part for me was to find the right rubber bands. And then I remembered, but hey, I have creative kids, and I suppose about everyone remembers this kind of sets with all these colorful rubber bands that you can make bracelets and all kind of stuff out of it, and little hooks. So herein I could find what I needed. There was also a lot to do about the left and right movement of this table. As I said, I don't have any lead screw, or I don't have any threaded rod long enough to make this lead screw. I found some websites online where you can order metric 2 rods, not a problem, but the price was absolutely not correct. The rod in itself is really cheap, no problem, but is the shipping. Now, of course, if you buy lots of other stuff, the shipping will be the same for all the stuff, but I don't think it was worth the cost of making a lead screw that really works and all this just to have a dust collector after all. So now, as you can see, you can turn it, it really spins, no problem, but the left and right movement is non-existent. It's a little bit cheating, but who cares? And then of course there was the idea of cutting the lead screw here on the lathe, but that's not an option either because I don't have any change gears for this machine. For the moment this machine is set at a pitch of 0.75 millimeter. It's a pitch that doesn't even exist in metric, so it's impossible to change. I needed 0.4. Now, a single point threading a very small rod is perfectly possible, but not without the right gears. I didn't include the final assembly of this build in the last video because on the footage you can only see my fingers and absolutely not what I'm doing, so I don't see the point. If you want to see my fingers, here they are. So for all of you that hesitates, make some kind of model, and I see in the comments there's lots of people who would like to do that and say I'm not able to do that. Yes, you are. This is only machining, but small,